Hey guys, this is Adam Parker Bailey, and I'm here with my friend Jacob Spencer.
Yo.
Jacob and I actually went to middle school together and recently reconnected and found out that we had some common interests. And we're going to do a video today talking about drug reform. So, Jacob, what's your opinion about drugs? Do you think they should be legal or illegal?
I think drugs should absolutely be legal.
All drugs?
Absolutely all drugs. There's no difference between any drugs and as far as like the good or bad that they can do, because it's the people that use them that matters. Like, I sort of have a joke about it. Like, you can use I think drugs are a lot like a hammer. You can use a hammer to build a house for your family, or you can use a hammer to murder your baby to death. It's not the hammer that does it. It's sort of, you.
Yes.
And, like, I think that's very, very telling. Like, how do you feel about that?
I would agree. I think a lot of that, too, has to do with education. I didn't get educated about drugs in school. There was no teacher that ever said anything about the effects of different drugs. And
Besides Dare, right?
well, see, and that was the thing, too, is just saying no clearly has not worked. That whole campaign, that whole thing that was started with the war on drugs, is a complete failure.
I don't even think it's a failure on accident.
No, it's not.
I think it's a failure on purpose.
I would agree. Yeah, absolutely, I would agree. Because, I mean, it's now been admitted that the United States is selling drugs to its own people. Or at least the CIA, if you can, however loosely connected the CIA is to the United States. But
Pretty connected, I would say, I think.
I believe. Have you seen American Drug or the?
Yes, that was one of my favorite documentaries in high school.
That was great. That was a fantastic documentary, and I highly recommend it for anybody. And that showed how Ricky Ross, Freeway Ricky Ross, as he was called, who the rapper Rick Ross has gotten his name from, he was called the Walmart of crack. This guy was making millions of dollars in the 1980s selling crack to the Los Angeles area. And it came to light eventually that his supplier was getting his cocaine from the CIA. So it was the CIA, then Ricky Ross's supplier, and then Ricky Ross's supplier gave it to Ricky Ross. This corruption that goes on in the intelligence communities and various aspects of the government is directly related to the drugs being illegal. The underground black market that's developed for these drugs provides the government a steady stream of income to support their black operations and development of technologies with money that that's not on the books. And this, by having the drugs illegal, you create more crime. You make it much more easy to access them. It's not hard to get drugs.
No, it's pretty easy.
You got a problem getting any drugs?
No.
Nothing. I can get any drug. I mean, if I'm 18 years old, do you remember being 18 and trying to get alcohol? It was a pain in the ass.
It's much harder to get alcohol than it is to get anything that is yeah, 100%.
I don't have to show my ID. I don't have to show my ID to the cocaine dealer. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no. You have to pull a "Hey, Mister" if you wanted to get some alcohol back in the day. But, so that's a big factor too. The people think that if you legalize drug use will increase, but studies have shown the opposite. Actually, they either stay the same or decrease. For
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
I think it would also, ironically enough, if you were to legalize drugs, it would reduce addiction a lot in a way that people don't really understand in a sense because it's fucking so weird, you know? Because like there was a study done, like you know, like that whole, you know, like studies like on like cocaine and stuff, where like if you give like a lab mice or an option between cocaine and food, they'll literally do the cocaine until they die. Every single time, they'll do the cocaine until they're dead.
Yes.
But if you provide that mouse with access to food, the cocaine, throw heroin in there, throw any dopamine like manipulating drug that is incredibly pleasurable to do in there, and on top of the food and those drugs, you put in other mice and things for the mouse to do to entertain itself besides just doing cocaine all the time, and other fundamental components of a mouse's life that allows the mouse to be a mouse. Suddenly, it doesn't go to the cocaine and the heroin anymore.
Right.
Sometimes, but not always, and not even a whole lot.
Absolutely.
And I think that's incredibly telling. How do you feel about that?
I would agree entirely. See, there's a lot of emerging science that's showing that our perception of addiction has been completely wrong. The addiction comes from feeling isolated, feeling lonely, feeling disconnected from the rest of your community, feeling
Trauma.
Yes, exactly. Feeling like you're unable to connect with other people and share and receive and reciprocate love. The unfulfilled life is what breeds addiction.
100%.
And
very well said.
If we can engage people in their community and put them in an environment that supports them, a community that feels worth in their in what they can provide, the addiction goes away. The addiction, because you don't even think about drugs anymore at that point. You have fulfilled your life with other things.
And you're removing the factors that are causing the unhappiness.
Precisely, yes. But that can't happen unless you legalize the substances. Because the way it's set up now is by having it such a clandestine, such a secretive thing, people they have to
seek it out.
Yeah,
like immense degree.
They have to be secretive about it. They have to imagine if all substances were legal, and you and your wife were having marriage problems. And you could go to a clinic, sign on a contract or whatever, and have a session with a therapist, and both of you take MDMA and work through your problems. That would be a huge, huge benefit, huge beneficial tool that that particular substance is made for, is to reconnect and break down those barriers that we create between ourselves, and with the aid of a therapist, a licensed therapist, that can make. I mean, if that type of a scenario was available, the potential for the abuse of that substance would diminish incredibly, because the perception of what it's for would change.
100%.
Yes. So, and you could take that same thing for
any chemical. Yeah, literally insert any chemical. Every single drug has a function. Essentially, it's just a matter of finding that function and then using it appropriately.
Absolutely. And see, this is another point that I've been trying to make as well, is that you can't use medicine that affects the physical body for an illness that affects your mind.
Ooh, very, very well put.
You have to use a substance that affects your mind and your consciousness. What do you think?
That is wow. That is an incredibly engaging point right there, because sort of where you're even leading into is the fact that, like, again, psychedelics and entheogens, dissociative anesthetics like PCP, ketamine, atypical psychedelics like LSD, mushrooms, etc., like, are profound tools for therapy.
Absolutely.
Profound.
You know, before they were illegal, some studies were showing a 50% success rate in curing alcoholism with a single dose of LSD. That's phenomenal. 50% success rate?
Even if that's exaggerated, that is still insanely substantial.
That's incredible.
You know what I mean? Like,
not only that, but there were even some studies showing that they could work through with people with autism, could actually come out of their autism with licensed therapeutic sessions with LSD.
That's fascinating. I haven't heard those studies. That's really cool.
So, and as we were talking about prior to this starting the video, cluster headaches are horrendous. I mean, just to watch somebody go through cluster headaches is it's painful to even watch. They are able to cure cluster headaches with one dose of a modified LSD chemical. The LSD chemical is modified to a degree that it actually hits a receptor and bounces off, so you don't actually have any hallucinogenic effects. And just one single dose, and you're cured for life. But it's illegal.
That's fascinating. And that's the shame with everything, too, is like, when you schedule these things, you completely stop all research and development, and then suddenly, you know, that fucking cure for cluster headaches is gone into the ether because the government's afraid of, well, I don't even know if it's necessarily a fear of, but the government intentionally restricts access to drugs that expand consciousness. And as a result of that, so it's severely holding back all psychiatric medication and even other medications that aren't even related to the mind.
Right. So let's look at this. You bring up a very good point. When looking at the schedule system, Schedule 3, Schedule 2, Schedule 1, the drugs that they've labeled the most harmful, the most dangerous, and of least medical value whatsoever, Schedule 1 drugs, are things like LSD, MDMA, cannabis. I mean,
the irony is hilarious.
It blows my mind, and so it's like, what's really going on here? Why are they so afraid of these particular substances? What is it about these substances that they feel so dangerous? Absolutely.
I think the government, I don't even know if it's fear, the government's specifically making a point of restricting consciousness. And I think they're doing so either, I don't know, you could make the argument that they're doing it maliciously or that they're doing it in a good way, in the sense of, I would argue that it's so, the negative impact of restricting like these substances has been so substantial that if it was intended in a good way, it was not deployed in a way that ultimately met that intent, because way too many people have gotten hurt as a result of holding back these medications.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's, difficult to grasp the idea that the way that our drug laws are set up is done so not out of a loving government that cares for our safety, but as a means to keep us controlled and keep us docile and keep us going along with the flow. Because so often when people take these substances that expand their consciousness, they start to realize a lot of what goes on in the government
doesn't seem to make sense.
Not adding up. What is the purpose of government if not to provide for its people? I mean,
Absolutely.
How well are they doing that now? By having these drugs illegal and creating this aura of crime and
Trauma.
yeah,
Fucking trauma.
right. That's really all it comes down to is that crime breeds crime. Okay, so if you say, well, we don't want methamphetamines to be legal because when people do meth, it makes them go crazy, and then they'll do crazy things to try to get that drug. Or heroin, for example. That's a great, people are so physically addicted to heroin, they'll do anything to get that next fix so they can avoid having to get sick again. But
sickness ain't fun.
right, but doing the substance itself is not a crime. You're not hurting anybody. There's no harm being done. See, if you're not infringing on somebody's life, liberty, property, how are you committing a crime?
Or hurting anyone.
Exactly.
Like, it's an ethical, like, it's literally, how could you make the ethical argument that simply taking anything, as long as you're not hurting yourself and hurting others, a bad thing? It's impossible, right? I mean,
and the argument, oh, well, if you get addicted, you're more likely to go steal something to go get your fix. Okay, but that's pre-crime. You can't do that. I haven't actually done anything. I haven't actually stolen anything yet.
And it's a separate ethical issue.
Exactly.
I mean, once you're stealing something, you're victimizing someone else, and that becomes an ethical problem.
Exactly. So charge me for stealing.
Don't charge you for pre-stealing.
Exactly.
Because that's not real.
Right. So what's really going on here? It's like, I can't remember who it was, but somebody back in the 1800s made the distinction between vices and crimes. And when you make a vice a crime, you've got the whole concept of government has gone completely backwards. And
you want to protect people's rights, not control their behavior. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. You cannot. It is not the government's job to protect a citizen from himself. You can't do that, because if that were the case, as soon as we were reborn, we'd be put into a rubber room with a fucking straitjacket.
I think it's ethically wrong to prevent someone from killing themselves.
Yeah.
I think you should reason with someone and, like, really try to... Because the second you restrict someone's free will, you are imposing on their boundaries and their rights. And that's not okay.
The idea that it's illegal to commit suicide is absurd. What?
It's horrible.
Who are you going to persecute?
And pretty ironically funny in a dark way.
This is the ass backwards thinking that's been surrounded this war on drugs. And, when this whole thing started out, it was a war on poverty. And then somehow morphed into the war on drugs, where the focus was no longer on ending poverty. It was focused on trying to end drugs. But you're fighting a losing battle, because human beings are intimately tied to conscious changing substances throughout our entire history.
It's essential for development.
Yes, absolutely.
At least in my eyes.
Absolutely, I would agree. And, education. Absolutely have to find a way to enlighten the people to what these substances are for, what uses they have, and using these substances in a responsible way.
Dare should be fucking teaching kids how to, like, shoot up heroin safely if they're gonna shoot up heroin, what mushrooms are, what LSD is, like, what all of these things are, how to test for their purity, how, stuff like that. Real fucking information, am I right?
I mean, yes, to some degree I would,
Well, maybe not. I'm not saying, like, let's go teach 8-year-olds how to shoot up heroin.
Well, of course, right.
I just mean, like, responsibly informing them, like, in a manner that's, like, going to actually benefit them instead of keeping them in the dark on purpose.
Right. So, like, I've spoken with people that they have difficulty purchasing hypodermic needles.
It's such a pain in the ass sometimes.
Apparently there's a lot of pushback, but hypodermic needles are not illegal. There's no it's an over-the-counter substance. I mean, there's, you know,
People
you
use
don't
them
need a
for insulin.
prescription for hypodermic needles. They can be used for many other things than even just intravenous use, you know. But so many companies and stores apparently have this policy that they refuse to give out hypodermic needles. But why?
All that's
You're not going to prevent those people from doing drugs by not selling them hypodermic needles. They're not all of a sudden going to go, you know, they're gonna, like, imagine them sitting at the counter and going, "Oh, you won't sell me hypodermic? Well, I might as well just stop doing drugs entirely." Hang on. Sorry. So as we were saying, what the only thing that is happening when you're preventing somebody from purchasing hypodermic needles is you're encouraging them to go use dirty needles and share needles with somebody.
It's not like they're gonna stop. It's not like, okay, I'm going to CVS to pick up some rigs. Oh, they're not gonna sell me any. I guess I'm not gonna use now and be sick instead. No, they'll go. I've talked to people who literally not only shared needles with each other, shared needles with people that they knew had specific like diseases that they could get with. But I've talked to people who shot up with fucking water from the toilet, with fucking drain water on the side of like parking garages.
Oh man!
I saw a girl shoot up with Arizona iced tea once.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, you can't impose free will. I couldn't stop her from doing it. I tried to tell her what would happen, but I mean, what do you do?
Right. See, our perception of the entire drug scenario needs to change because the way we've been going about it is failing. Anyone can see this. And a lot of it, I feel like, comes from just simple fear. Simple lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge, a lack of information on what these substances are, what their uses can be, and what the benefits are of actually making them legal. Not making them more accessible, because legalizing them will actually make them less accessible. Because if I'm a heroin addict, let's say, I am not going to go to Joe fucking Schmo down the street who's going to give me something that I don't know what's in it.
And it's probably cut to death.
It's probably, you know, I'm going to...
And he could rob you.
I'm going to sit in fucking line and wait at that fucking clinic and have them give me a whole bunch of information on why this is harmful, what the dangers of the addiction is, and what, you know, and have to read through all, you know, go through the whole lecture, speak with a therapist, so I can get that clean needle, that clean water, and that pure substance. Of course you're going to do that. Nobody's going to risk Joe Schmo down the street.
Mountain purity is everything.
Exactly.
Especially with opiates, where you can die if you don't know what you're getting.
Exactly.
Christ.
So there's a huge safety component to legalizing substances that people just they don't. It's a big disconnect. They don't get it.
I mean, we should legalize opiates tomorrow, just because of the amount of lives it would save. If we literally just legalize opiates.
Take this town, for example.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Something happened, dude. This town just got completely overrun by opiates, man. It's insane.
Heroin's taken over the whole country. The fact that it's here is just a sign that it's everywhere else.
It absolutely is. And look, this is the sad part about it that people just, they don't want to put their minds around, is that a lot of... I shouldn't say it this way. I'm going to say it a different way. Certain elements of our government have been taking advantage of certain wars that go on by using them to produce opiates to sell to our own people. Vietnam, during the Vietnam era, where was all the heroin coming from? Vietnam. That whole area. So...
Iraq, too.
Well, yeah. Now... where is it all coming from now? The Middle East and Iraq. I mean, Afghanistan. Afghanistan is producing, what, 80% of the world's heroin now? And look, prior to Desert Storm, Afghanistan was producing somewhere in the nature of 40% of the world's heroin. Don't quote me on that. That's not an exact figure.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
I also just want to say, definitely Afghanistan, but I don't want to get my head cut off with the chainsaw. Mexico definitely also contributes a lot.
No, but it's not produced there.
No, that's true. That's true. I don't want my head cut off with a chainsaw. They distribute a lot. It's definitely produced in Afghanistan. I just don't want to fuck with the cartels.
As I was saying.
Sorry.
So prior to Desert Storm, Afghanistan was producing somewhere in the nature of 40% of the world's heroin. Okay. After Desert Storm, I'm sorry. Sorry, let me back up.
I threw you off my bad.
Prior to Desert Storm, Afghanistan was not producing any of the world's heroin. After Desert Storm, it's produced somewhere in the nature of 40 to 50% of the world's heroin. Okay. Then, that is when Osama bin Laden and the Taliban, Osama bin Laden, who was business partners with the Bush family, had a business disagreement. The Bush family wanted to build a pipeline through Afghanistan, and the bin Ladens wanted more money. The Bush family said, no, fuck you, and bin Laden said, no, fuck you. And that's when he made the Taliban and started ruining all the poppy fields. Well, the Bush family didn't like that very much, and so that's when we went in and blew the shit out of the entire country, and now they're producing 80% of the world's heroin.
Wait, Adam, so you're telling me that due to a business disagreement, Osama bin Laden directly tried to get in the way of America's business interests in their drug distribution?
Yep.
That's pretty interesting.
It didn't work out too well for him.
No, it didn't. Oh, boy.
These are not my figures, folks. These are Forbes. This is not... You can look this information up yourselves. This is not... I didn't just come up with this off the top of my head. So, it should be a little suspect that a country that we have completely controlled militarily, not a single thing goes in and out of that country that we don't know about, but yet they're producing 80% of the world's heroin?
Yeah, I wonder.
How's that going to get, go unnoticed by the American military? There's just no way. There's no way.
I hear they send it back in coffins.
I mean, who knows? Who knows how they do it now? It's just, man.
Yeah, I don't want to speak hearsay, but I've heard a lot of weird things about how the government wants to get drugs into the country, that's for sure.
Yeah, so this is the big issue. It's now been admitted that the Defense Department is missing $21 trillion. $21 trillion unaccounted for in the defense budget. This is all tied in together. The drug running is intimately tied in with the black projects, because they need to find a way to finance these black projects with money that's off the books. This is a big part of why drugs are still illegal. It has nothing to do with your safety. The government does not care about your safety. And this is another thing too. Why is the government putting fluoride in our water? Do you know why?
Isn't it to protect our teeth?
To protect our teeth! Because the fucking government all of a sudden gives a shit about us having nice, shiny, pearly whites. Give me a break, people! Come on!
Chemtrails are fake too, right?
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Jesus.
I know.
Look, people,
this information's powerful, though. It's weird.
So, look. I guess the bottom line is, when it comes to these substances, education and information is what's going to save us. Because the way that we've been going about it now, where anyone that uses these substances is automatically a derelict and marginalized and pushed to the edge of society and say, oh, there's something wrong with you, nothing can be done about this situation, you're just a hopeless addict. This perception that we have needs to change. Absolutely needs to change. And legalizing these substances is not going to do what everyone's afraid it's going to do. It's not going to make it easier for people to get them. It's not going to make it easier for children to get them. It's going to do the opposite. And if we use all this money that we're spending on anti-drug advertisements, which is an insurmountable amount of money, just an insane amount of money, if we use that for drug reform and drug rehabilitation, thank you, we will see a dramatic change. Look at Portugal. Portugal decriminalized all drug use, and it's working. Fantastically, it's working.
Yeah, nobody wants to say that, but it is.
It is, man. So that's the bottom line. Will drugs ever become legal? I don't think so, because of the corruption that's involved and the benefit that the government has from making them illegal. How many people are incarcerated now? What, 70% of people are incarcerated for non-violent crimes, mostly related to drugs? That's insane.
And that's on purpose, too.
That is insane. What were you going to say?
I only disagree in that I don't think they will be illegal forever. I honestly think we're going to see change happen incredibly soon, like way sooner than we even think, just because of all the studies that have been going. Like we're literally sitting in a psychedelic renaissance right now, as far as all of the lesser restrictions that are on all of these substances, as far as medical research, as far as like general access to them by the general public. I mean, DMT is one of the most popular fucking drugs like around now, if you can get it. Ayahuasca, there's so many ayahuasca retreats all over the world now. It is only a matter of time until we see these substances finally be used for what they're supposed to be used. You know?
Yep.
It can't be forever. That would be depressing too.
You're right. I agree. I agree that there is rapid change happening on many different levels. Very exciting time to be alive, that's for sure, because it really breaks my heart for a lot of the people that just are not aware of what's really happening on this planet right now, and the amazing things, the amazing shifts that are happening. But it's going to catch up to them pretty soon.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And I mean, it'll come to them when they're ready, I suppose. The hardest thing, it seems to be, at least to me, is to try to, like, tell people too much, too fast, and then impose on their free will in doing so. People have to come to the knowledge themselves, you know?
Yes. Yes, I've definitely struggled with that in many ways in the past. But so, alright, I think that about sums it up for now. Jacob, thank you very much for joining me. You're a very intelligent guy, and I appreciate appreciate your opinion very much, and it's been fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. See you guys later.